And we're back with secret number
10
from Expert Secrets, section number 2.
The 4 core stories. So it's pretty neat because it pretty much just goes through the 4 core stories that you can go through in order to build your epiphany bridge well.
Okay,
so
tell us about it, please.
So when people have a bad experience, it explains that they create a story in their head that they tell themselves. You mentioned this earlier too. So this story holds them back with chains or false beliefs. So, you know, those false beliefs usually keep you from forgetting bad experiences. That's essentially what they're saying. To break someone's false beliefs, we have to identify the experience they went through that made them create the story they tell themselves. Then we have to share a story that breaks through their false beliefs and helps them form a new belief. Later, you'll choose the best epiphany bridge story for each one of those categories. But for now, they should essentially you should create a lot of epiphany bridges epiphany bridge stories to break lots of different false beliefs. So it's essentially just telling the story of how whatever people are looking at you to accomplish that you have accomplished, letting them know that the struggles that you went through are precisely, if not very 99% the same as what they're going through, you know, and then breaking the chain of like, okay, well, you believe that you can't get past this because of this. Well, I believe that too, and now I'm past it.
Right. And so this is actually my secret number 9. And so it's called, in my book, it's called false belief patterns in the old book. From 2018. So yeah, I have the basics, same breakdown, and like for the first piece of it, for the first one or the first story, think about the false beliefs that we had before our big epiphany, and then on the second piece, it's what experience in the potential customers' lives created the false beliefs, and what's the false story they're telling themselves now that's creating doubt about your new opportunity. That's what I had for the third one. And then, of course, 4, find an epiphany bridge in your own lives that shows how we once had a similar belief, but because of this new story, we now have a new belief pattern, and that old story we were telling ourselves was wrong.
Yeah.
And so we list all the false belief customers might have, list the experiences that might have caused those beliefs, list the stories they're telling themselves because of these experiences, and think about your own epiphany bridge stories for each of the false beliefs. And that's how you're going to, if you were going to do a webinar, or even if you're going to make videos like this, if you're making a fitness ad or something like that, this is the process you need to go through to tell the story that's going to connect with the ideal customer that you have, and tell that story that's going to give them the same epiphany. And it's going to be like, oh, and like basically what I've been doing throughout these episodes is doing that same thing for Jelani, right? And so I tell a story of perspective, right? That everybody can relate to and you can relate to. And then you have the same epiphany. It's like, oh yeah, I never thought about changing your position or asking for help from someone who has a different position and perspective can bring me to resolution to my problem. And so using stories like that help people make sense of the world, stories of how your brain makes sense of the world. And so people won't really move or be moved
or even resonate in the first place. Yeah,
in the first place, if you're not telling a story. And then on top of that, telling a story, if you put some emotion in it, then it really makes people want to move. And that's the key to building a brand or a mass movement. And some people know that and use that to to people's detriment and for bad things. But when you're doing it for good, there's really
magic happens at that point.
Magic happens. There's no stopping you from achieving really great things.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it breaks it down more in the book with the 4 core stories. It tells you what the 4 core stories are in the book. But the concept is you got to make sure that whenever you're developing your relationship with your dream customer or your dream client, it's very important to put yourself in that position, not only by just saying, oh, what if I was selling to myself? What would I look like? It's more of just resonating well with the person that you're trying to provide value to. Like, people make friends. I mean, most people make friends because they enjoy having like-minded individuals in their lives in general, for whatever reason that is. But that's typically the basis of new relationships, learning new information. If you want to build a house alone, you probably can, but you have to learn how to do every single thing. But if you have at least a trusted source of information that's outside of yourself, you usually build some type of relationship with whoever that is. And when you do, you determine if you do or don't want to put whatever effort into manifesting more out of that relationship. So that's the same thing here. Friend to friend, there's probably some friends you hang out with all the time. There's probably some friends who you don't hang out with very much. But the point is that they're probably still in your life because they provide value to you emotionally, business-wise, whatever the case may be. But it's easier to relate to them if you understand where they are in their life in relation to everything else and where you are. And you only know things like that by creating relationships with people, hanging out with people, learning from other people.
And good bosses develop relationships with the people that they work with. Good managers do that.
Agreed.
But when you don't, it really
shows.
It can really ruin the culture of a company. And so, you have to deal with the person, treat the person
as a person, and not like a machine or a robot that's just there to do and get jobs done for you. Yes.
That's not the way it works. That's not how you would want to be treated if you were in that position. So, like, why would you treat other people that way? I think
that's caused me to quit jobs that were financially the most beneficial thing for me in my life. But I've quit because the culture was so good, but I felt lost in the shuffle, really, when it came to why I was getting paid there. I love to enjoy the culture there, but I couldn't because I had to do what I needed to do to get paid. But when I was doing that, I didn't feel like I was being treated like a person. So I had to leave.
Yep.
And that was as simple as that.
Number one key to turnover.
Yeah.
Is people don't feel like they're being treated as an individual. And like we said earlier, everybody has their own story, and you should treat that as a gift.
Yes.
When somebody is willing to tell you at least even part of their story, because they don't have to, and when they do, it gives you a window to their world that should help shape your view of that person, so that
your potential relationship with that person,
and your relationship with that person, so that the next time that you're engaging with them, that understanding is there too.
Yep.
And it's not lost, and it may even alter your behavior or the words that you say to this person, but it should. It should. And at the end of the day, maybe it's a little bit more work to treat everybody as an individual, but it's worth it. It's so worth it. It's worth it,
dude. There's a lot of relationships that I've had over the years where I'm just super grateful that not only was the person or individual just gracious enough to share their time on this planet with me, but in addition to that, them being willing to actually have me contribute to their universe and being
their journey.
Yes. And I'm just grateful for that more. I feel like I can always be more gracious and grateful to people that I care about, but my point is, I think a lot about those types of things because it's so crucial to who I am and how I move and everything. Because it's without knowing where I stand in relation to the people around me, I'm essentially just walking around by myself. But you're never really alone, because if you have a place to live and warm place to live and things like that, you didn't do it by yourself. Like, so don't act like it. I don't, you know what I'm saying? That's just my philosophy.
Unless you literally built your house yourself and installed the plumbing and electric and all that, you didn't do it by yourself.
And even so, it's like, I mean, somebody owns the land, somebody owns, there's just so many factors.
Somebody made the nail, somebody processed the wood. Like, you didn't do it by yourself.
Right.
But all that to say that treating the person is where this false belief piece comes in.
Yes.
And everybody is walking around with some sort of false narrative, unless they've self-actualized, like a person, I'll pick like Russell Simmons or Jay-Z or somebody like that, which they're probably walking around with very good beliefs in their head because they actually achieved the things that they wanted to. Everybody that has not achieved, that has a goal that is yet unachieved, is walking around with a false narrative about themselves in their head that keeps them from doing it. Because ultimately, unless you really have some sort of mental disability or physical disability that truly prevents you from doing that thing, the only thing that limits us from doing anything is ourselves. Nobody's stopping you. You might think they're stopping. You might think that person, your wife, your boss, your teacher, your cousin, your brother is stopping. They're not. They're not. Because if you really wanted to do it, they couldn't stop. They can't stop you. Once you're energized and activated, nothing can stop you except for you.
Nothing can stop you from striving towards that. You know what I mean?
Right. Because striving towards it every day, from doing something to get yourself toward your goal every day, no one is stopping you. No one is stopping you from doing that. And even if you have to go somewhere else to do it, away from that person.
Yes. And I learned that, in fact, living in a big apartment versus just a two-family or something like that. I'm a fan of home offices, but I'm kind of picky over time with the amount of space I need versus the amount of space I have. So I struggle with that. But in finding a good home office, I found that having a room that's dedicated to your work that isn't your bedroom is obviously better.
So good.
I encourage it if you can do it. And if you're not doing it just because of whatever, you're holding yourself back. So you should probably consider it. But if it works for you, do it. But my point is, like, now I found out in an apartment where I have a place to go separate from my living space. I can go downstairs into a room and then study. And that's when I did my studying for the notes, you know. So that type of thing is something that can change your whole routine.
And if you can't do that, if you only have one room, you can also change your perspective. So
compartmentalize the room.
Yeah, if your bed is in one corner and maybe you got a desk in a different corner, and maybe the desk is where you do your schoolwork and you want to do your creative work, looking out the window, whatever you need to do to change your perspective to get in that mindset, because ultimately it's about getting in the positive mindset, removing the false beliefs, and then getting on to the opportunity. So for you, wherever you're at in your journey, maybe you're helping other people get past these false beliefs, or maybe you're trying to get past the false beliefs yourself. And a lot of times the root of those is not very easily determined.
Right. Or identified either.
Yeah, or identified. That's what I mean. It's like, it might be something from your childhood that somebody said one time, and it affected you your entire life. I remember, I'll tell you a story right now. I remember in 5th grade, Mrs. Fatum, I'll never forget her. She's probably passed on now. She's pretty old back then. We were walking in from recess, and I wasn't very good at math. I just didn't pay much attention to class because school was not. I wasn't big on school. I wanted to do what I wanted to do. I wanted to create and things like that. And so I had failed a math quiz. Really, I got a D, whatever, which is failing. To me, that's failing too. And we were walking in from recess, and there were like 1 or 2 other teachers standing next to her, or not standing there, walking next to her. And I was walking up past her because I was walking faster than them. And as I'm walking past, I hear her say, and Darian failed another quiz, or failed a quiz again. And I was like, first of all, why are you telling other people that?
Yeah.
And second of all, why are you trying to remind me when I'm coming in from recess? Like, what are you, first of all, why do you have something against me that you need to say that?
Yeah.
And needless to say, this is an older white lady. I'm sure she had trouble with black kids. But, like, I will never forget that. I will never forget that. I don't know where that sits with me. I think honestly it motivates me. I don't think I ever failed another thing in her class. Like I aced everything from that point on, because I was like, you're not gonna have that over me. No.
Right, exactly.
You messed up.
Yeah,
because you thought you had a kid that was like never gonna be anything, and then that statement was gonna push him further into the depths.
Sure,
but that doesn't work for me. If you tell me I can't do something,
right,
and watch me do it. Right. Like, it's like
watch me do this. And honestly, I'm gonna say, See No Evil inspired that idea. Watch me do this. Watch me do this. All right, so but no, that's totally understood, because I remember stuff from my childhood that has motivated me to just like go on whatever path it is. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing. I feel like you watching can think of a couple things that have happened in your lifetime, a first experience of doing something, some advice you got when you were, usually advice that you get on learning things you didn't know how to do are usually first impressions, right? Yeah. First impressions are the strongest. People say that for a reason. It's not just an expression. Like,
your brain is literally built to make it that way.
Yeah. So honestly, man, I love this podcast, man. Keep up the good work. And if y'all want to know details about what we're talking about,
get the book.
I
got a couple more secrets in my book that I want to talk about, but that's a wrap to false beliefs and the 4 core stories, I think.
Sure.
If you want to get into the 4 core stories, like you said, get the updated book. And then in the next segment, we're going to get, for me, into the 3 secrets, and then we'll come back with the big domino, and I think that deserves its own piece as well.
Yes, indeed.
So yeah.
All right. Stay tuned.